Welcome to the Bruins Benders podcast. It's season 3, episode 7. A Benders big announcement coming today with Maddie and Smitty, brought to you on the Inside the Rink podcast network. InsideTheRink.com is your one-stop shop for all your NHL and ECHL news, insight, and analysis. Follow on X at inside_the_rink. Download the Inside the Rink app and watch us on YouTube. Hit the like button, hit subscribe if you're watching right now, and go ahead and check out what Smitty's about to tell you about. ESPN Plus is available to you.
Yeah, you can sign up for ESPN Plus by going to the Inside the Rink website. Go on over there to insidetherink.com/ESPN and sign up today. I have ESPN Plus. I love all the college sports, UFC, and now NHL hockey. So sign up for ESPN Plus at insidetherink.com/ESPN today so you do not miss any Bruins action. One last time, sign up at insidetherink.com/ESPN.
Can you get the Pat McAfee show on that bad boy right there in ESPN Plus?
I think you can.
Back issues.
Yeah, I think you can.
Episodes, yeah.
I don't know about back episodes, but I believe you can get it on there, throw it on there. He's on regular ESPN too, ESPN and ESPN2, I think.
They're paying him enough to be on all sorts of ESPN.
Yeah, he's on all their media, all the channels. He's out and about, he's around, he's doing big things. Got a new segment over there the last few weeks. Hockey is awesome, and it's catching on. And other people are jumping on the hockey bandwagon. It's nice to see. It
is. The commissioner was on today.
Yeah.
And he's had Austin Matthews and Butcher Gross. He's had some good guests on there, and he does the hockey is awesome. So that's really cool. I mean, I need more of it. And
absolutely.
He's obviously a very popular, polarizing person right now. He's all the rage, as they would say.
He is.
And so that's good that hockey gets some recognition. Hey, some Bruins notes today. Matt Grzelcyk goes on the long-term IR with an upper body injury. The Bruins placed Jakub Lauko on injured reserve, still battling his eye injury, and then recalled defenseman Mason Lohrei, Ian Mitchell, and Parker Wotherspoon from Providence today.
Yeah, a lot of moves. I think a lot of it is cap related, and then obviously you have the McAvoy suspension, the Grzelcyk injury. So you needed a couple of defensemen, and they called up 3. So now you got some guys there to fill in while McAvoy is out, and Grzelcyk, it sounds like, might be a little bit longer term than what they originally had hoped. So it'll be a challenge for them coming up here in the next few weeks anyway, or a week or so, while McAvoy is out, especially to play the defense the way they've been playing it up to this point in the season.
So what is up with Jakub Zboril, do you think? Nowhere in sight.
It's a very good question. I think we're going to talk about it a little bit in the chirps, but you have to think that he's fallen out of favor maybe a little bit. You get 3 guys get called up, and he's not one of them. And he was with the team all last year, and 3 guys have passed him. I mean, it seems odd to me that he wouldn't be one of the ones to get the call. Maybe he makes too much money. Maybe that's part of it, because he is making over $1 million where the other guys are not. So it could be a salary cap thing. I hope for his sake it is. But a first round pick that that gets passed over by a guy you got in a throw in basically in a trade, and then Witherspoon you picked up off the street, I think.
Yeah.
So, that doesn't really bode well for his future with the Bruins.
No, it doesn't. And stay tuned for that. I guess this is the last year of his deal. Like you said, he is making too much money. Maybe that's a big part of it. I don't know. Other news of note: David Pastrnak was named NHL's 3rd star of the month of October. 8 goals, 5 assists, 13 points, plus 8 in 8 games or somewhere like 9 games.
Mhm.
Playing well, doing what he needs to do, and that's score goals, score big goals, and that's kind of who he is, what he does.
Yeah, I mean it's nice. It's nice to see him start off this way. They certainly needed him to. I think they're going to have a trouble all season long, kind of scoring goals. I think that's going to be an issue for this team. But he's the one that needs to do it, and he started off hot, so it's good to see.
Yeah. So a weekend review, and it didn't start out well. October 26th versus Anaheim, a 4-3 overtime loss, a real choke job, a real gagger.
Yeah.
Right here, 3-1 lead with 2 minutes left. Patrick Brown tackles a guy behind the net for no apparent reason. Bruins have hundreds, maybe thousands of chances to clear the puck. It seemed as though they had at least 10, where guys had it on the stick with no pressure.
Yeah.
And couldn't get it going.
No, couldn't get it out. Couldn't do the things they needed to do to close that one out. I think Montgomery said after the game, how disappointing it was, and that they did. They had pucks on sticks, and he said he thought to himself 3 or 4 times, well, the game's over, because they had the puck with a chance to clear and they just couldn't get it done. And then it bites them in the ass, and they go to OT, don't possess the puck at all in the entirety of the overtime, basically, and the Ducks score and win.
Reminded me of the preseason game against the Caps, where they didn't possess the puck at all in the overtime, and Matthew Phillips scored. Same sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a real sort of bag job collapse of epic proportions. But luckily, the Bruins have seemed to rebound since then. And October 28th against Detroit, a 4-1 win against a good Detroit team that was hot and scoring tons of goals.
Mm-hmm.
They hold them to 1 goal. Much better start in the game, up 2-0 after 1. Goals by Zacha on the power play, and a nice going to the net kind of goal by McAvoy. Second didn't start out well, but the Bees finished the period strong. And it almost cost them a third period defensive shell that almost cost them the lead. Villano scores to make it 2-1 for Detroit, and then a bad puck management by Coyle in the neutral zone. But Pasta ices the game with the penalty shot and an empty netter. 8 goals in the season for him so far, and the Bruins get a good win against, like I said, probably the best team to date that they had played.
Yeah, it was a good win. It was a good win against, a team in your division too. So it's kind of a 4-point matchup. So it's nice to come out on top in those. And they took care of business when they needed to. And it was a good defensive effort against, like you said, a team that's been scoring a lot of goals. Dylan Larkin and Alex DeBrincat have been as hot as anyone in the league to start the year, and basically held those guys off the score sheet. So a really nice win. Good bounce back win after the atrocity that was the Anaheim games. And, then they have Florida coming up next.
Yeah, on October 30, it was Jim Montgomery who said that this was not like any other game. They ended the season last year, bad taste in his mouth. So what happens? Bruins come out with a terrible start, almost like a preseason type of beginning.
For it now, it's
it
becoming a thing, and it's not a good thing either. But it's becoming a thing for them. Start slow, and then one good period, and then one good start, and then the second period's junk. So they really haven't put together a full 60-minute effort yet this season.
No, they haven't. It's amazing that they'd be 8-0-1, but that is the case. And what might be their worst period of the year, that first period, Grzelcyk leaves with an upper body injury, outshot 17-5, down 2-0 at the end of 1. It just really looked like it was going to be a no-show night. You can't call the game something more than a regular season game and then come out like that. I did look though, and they have 7 new players from last year's playoffs.
Yeah.
So that could be part of it. Those guys weren't there, and almost half your roster wasn't there for the postseason letdown. But the second was much better. Brad Marchand scores. Bruins are down 1 at the end of 2, and then come all the way back. Charlie McAvoy scores a great cut to the net, ties it in the third, and then inexplicably makes a really boneheaded play. Sort of a cheap shot, headshot to Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Not really McAvoy-like, sort of a head scratcher. Gets a Matt's penalty. Bruins have to kill a major penalty, which they do. Their penalty killing is tops in the league. Linus Ullmark makes 7 saves in the PK and does the job there. And then Pavel Zacha with an absolute missile in the overtime. and they win it 3-2. Improbable, probably their best win of the year, and considering where it was at the beginning, and really a good sign that the team, just kind of still finding ways to win.
Finding ways to win, battling through adversity, because that start, like you said, was one of the worst that they've had definitely this year, and maybe the worst period in a long, long time. I mean, I don't remember very many periods even last year where they got dominated like that, unless you want to go to the Florida series. I mean, the first period of this game against Florida was very, very similar to how the Bruins played in the playoffs against the Panthers, where the Panthers just dominated them on the forecheck, were heavy down low. The Bruins just threw pucks out of the zone or coughed pucks up, didn't possess pucks well at all. And then somehow they turned it around in the second half of the game, and then their penalty killing and Allmark certainly saved them in this one, because that could have turned out much, much worse there after the stupid penalty by McAvoy. And they come out with a win somehow.
Yeah, the Bruins actually set a NHL record with 79 wins in a 100-game span. 79 wins in their last 100 games. Pretty incredible, and really leaving, really going to where they left off last year when they won 65 games. And no one ever thought that they would start this way this year. We thought it would be kind of a different type of year. They thought they'd still be pretty good. We both picked them into the playoffs and 100 points or so team, but we didn't pick the start. They did have a favorable schedule, which you can say is accurate.
Although they did have to go out on the roads,
they did. So, no, they did.
I mean, they weren't playing great teams, but they did have to go on a West Coast trip early in the season, which, like we said before, Carolina came back from that trip 2-2. So,
yeah,
I mean, even though it's favorable, you're not playing great teams, you still have to do a West Coast trip early in the year with a bunch of new guys. So, finding ways to win.
No, absolutely. And here's an interesting stat: 5-on-5 expected goals percentage. And I consider the Bruins, leading up to this point, not the greatest 5-on-5 team in the world. But if you're watching us on YouTube, you see the graphic here. The Bruins are 6th in the NHL in expected goals percentage, 5-on-5. And that's through the October 29th date. So it doesn't include Florida, but 55.1%, 6th in the league, which is interesting. Because again, I don't really consider them a team that has played great 5-on-5, but this was an interesting stat to me.
Yeah, I agree with you. I thought 5-on-5 they really weren't playing that well, but apparently they're still getting chances 5-on-5. And we'll talk a little bit about the goal scoring too. We mentioned that we think they'll probably struggle all year to score goals, but it's been a little bit better than you think.
Yeah, it has.
Than you think.
Yeah.
So, they've been getting it done when they've needed to get it done, and that's a sign of a good team. Finding ways to do it. Different guys stepping up at different times. Different guys have won games for them. Patra won a game for them. Zacha. I mean, they've had different guys kind of step up and make plays when they've needed it. So that's a good sign. A little resiliency and a bunch of guys making plays rather than having, it just be a few or a top line. You have a lot more players than passengers, which is nice to see.
Sure. And the credit to Jay Fresh Hockey on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
And the data's from Top Down Hockey. And a big announcement now coming up from the Bruins Benders podcast. Lops Brewing, our great sponsor, and the folks there with Sean Lopolito and the Bruins Benders podcast proudly present a new beer release on November 18th. Bar Down New England IPA is coming to a mouth near you as we drink tons of beer with our friends at Lops Brewing. So a new beer called Bar Down New England IPA.
There it is.
Brought to you by Lops Brewing and the Bruins Benders podcast.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's going to be hazy orange color, bursting with citrus and aroma flavors. IPA. It'll be released in the tasting room Saturday, November 18th, on tap and in 16-ounce 4-packs to go. So you can go down there and grab that. And we will be down there on that day, live at 6 p.m. We're going to do a podcast live on November 18th from Lops Brewing at 6. And then we're going to hang out for a little meet and greet, including many beers, I think. And then a Bruins watch party starting at 7 as the Bruins take on the hated Montreal Canadiens. So that should be a great night. Come down and join us. We'll be there broadcasting live. The beer will be released. You can come down, try the beer, try all of his other beers. He's got a lot of great stuff over there. It's a beautiful tap room, tasting room down in Woonsocket, Rhode Island. So come on down there and join us. It should be a great event, and we're really looking forward to it.
Absolutely. So we will be down there November the 18th. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see that label. It's a really, really cool thing for us, and we thank Sean Lopolito and the folks at Lops Brewing for being great sponsors and then coming up with this beer collaboration, which we're really excited about. We love the IPAs, and we're going to have an IPA that is, sort of our kind of thing. So that's nice.
Yeah.
All right. And Seven Chirps, guess what? It's sponsored by Lops Brewing.
Yes,
and it is a beer and tasting room in downtown Woonsocket, Rhode Island, specializing in small batch ales and lagers. Open 7 days a week. Use the coupon code SPORTS to get 10% off your online order. Go to lopsbrewing.com. Follow them on social media at Lops Brewing for new beers and events. Chirp 1. Hampus Lindholm has struggled some, played a little bit better a little bit lately. But what do you think? It's, and defensively, he's been okay. It's really offensively. The puck looks like a grenade sometimes on his stick, and I'm not sure what's going on with him.
Yeah, I wish I knew. He just doesn't look like himself. I don't know if he's still trying to find his game back after the horrible playoff he had. I believe I'm still not sure if he has a point yet.
He does not.
Yeah, I think he's like 0-0 minus 3 or 4 or 2 or something. Like, he's not having a good year at all, and they need him, especially now with McAvoy going to be out the next 4 games or so. That he needs to play like he was playing at the beginning of last year when he kind of took over that defense core and was, people were talking about him being a Norris finalist at the beginning of last season. So we need to see that Lindholm and not the one that is currently patrolling the blue line for the Bruins.
Yeah, -2, 14 shots on goal in 9 games, no points. Uncharacteristic for him since he was a +49 last year, led the league. His average ice time is up. It's about 24 minutes, 11 blocks, just 2 hits. But that's on his game, but still 2 hits is a little low. And just not, I don't know. He didn't score a point in the playoffs. Hasn't scored a point now in the regular season. Still a good player. And I did see a stat, I think, where the team is 12-3 when he is in the lineup and McAvoy is not. So maybe it's a case where if McAvoy is not here, then Lindholm can be the guy and find his game a little. Hopefully that's the case. Depending on who he plays with, whether it's still Carlo or whoever, they may be switching guys around as they try to get guys familiar with each other, with Grzelcyk and McAvoy both out. But, maybe it'll take McAvoy stepping away and Lindholm focusing a little bit more and hopefully finding his game some. Hopefully.
They'll certainly need it. They'll certainly need it.
Well, they're gonna need it in this stretch, because this 4 games right here without McAvoy, starting with Toronto, it's not ideal. So, we'll see how they respond. Chirp number 2, the Jim Montgomery Bruins, following a loss of 15-2-1 and a +21 goal differential, 55-34, since he became the head coach. Pretty impressive after a loss.
It is impressive, and that I don't know if that's necessarily all him. I mean, they had kind of a wagon last year. And they really haven't lost this year.
No.
I mean, they had the 1 overtime loss, but it's tough to say whether that's really him or if it's the guys. I mean, sure. I mean, I guess because he's the head coach, you give him some credit. But these guys, this particular team, these core of players have always been pretty resilient in my mind. So, I think there's plenty of credit to go around, but it is an impressive stat that they can bounce back this way after a loss.
Sure, it is a good sign, and they played two quality teams after their loss, and it was a crushing loss to the Ducks. It was just
Yeah.
not a good one. It wasn't a good one at all, and it was a kind of loss that could send a team set tail spinning. So I think that that was a great sign that they were able to come back against two quality teams and win, get 4 points,
Mhm.
and now they're probably the best team they played yet in Toronto, coming up next. So we'll see how they can do it. A little bit shorthanded on defense. And speaking of which, chirp number 3, Charlie McAvoy hit, suspended 4 games. You think that's the right call?
I thought it was a little high, but if you look at the Rasmus Anderson hit on line A, similar hit. I thought the hit on line A was worse, honestly, because I thought it knocked him out of the game. I think Oliver Ekman-Larsson wasn't hurt. That used to play a part in it. Maybe it doesn't anymore. Maybe it's just the intent or, the hit itself and not necessarily the result of the hit. The result used to be part of the punishment. It doesn't appear as though it was the case this time. I thought he should have got 2 or 3 games because he's not really a repeat offender. I think he's been suspended once before in his career. So I don't know. I thought it was a little bit high, but I'm certainly it was a bad hit and a terrible decision. So 4 games is, what you should get for being that dumb, maybe.
Yeah, I can't wrap my head around what the thought process was, because
Yeah.
if you watch it, and I watched it 10 times probably,
Mhm.
and I just don't get it. And all I could think of was that he's cutting across the, to create some space or trying to get that area, and thinks that Ekman Larsson is going to come and go shoulder to shoulder with him, like just to gain the spot. And Ekman Larsson doesn't see him, so doesn't respond, and he
Right.
just goes right through him, because I just don't understand why McAvoy would even do that. First of all, he's in front of the net, which he never is. And
Yeah.
where are you going? And what are you doing? And it was, the more I watched it, the more I was like, this is just weird. It was just a weird thing. The whole thing was unnatural looking and weird. I
Yeah,
thought,
I
you
mean,
know,
there really is no explanation for it. You watch it and you say, "Well, that was dumb," and it just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to me why he would do that. I mean, he easily could have avoided him. Even if they were going to go shoulder to shoulder, he could have, just skated around him. Basically,
right.
there was plenty of space for him to do something else, make some other decision there. And it was just a boneheaded play. And he's going to have to pay for it. And the team is too, because he was really kind of playing well at this point. Kind of found his game. He was a little bit rough, I thought, early going, and then the last 3, 4, 5 games he had kind of found his stride, and then he does something like this, and now he has to start all over again. It's just a bad play and a terrible decision.
It was strange, and this tough stretch coming up with Maple Leafs and Red Wings and Stars and the Islanders.
Yeah.
It's just not ideal. Um, you would think the Bruins have a little bit of depth there, but we'll see. We'll see how much depth they have and how much they can sustain the loss of McAvoy, especially with Grzelcyk out as well. Um, chirp number 5, Matthew
4.
Patra. I'm sorry,
4.
4.
Yep. Yep.
Matthew Patra decision. He is here to stay, and that's something we thought, and many thought, was probably just sort of a slam dunk decision, because he's been one of their better players for the most part consistently.
He has been one of their better players, and there was kind of some weirdness about it. Like they were said, "Oh, we'll decide after game 8," and they're like, "Oh, we're going to decide after game 9," and it kind of put some doubt in my head. Like, why would they possibly send him back? Like, he has
Yeah,
nothing to gain at all from going back. And maybe they wanted to see how he played against a physical playoff, type team in Florida first before they made up their mind. But and everybody that watched him play was, unanimous basically in the fact that he should be here. I mean, he's helped them win games, and he honestly deserves to be here for sure.
Here's me, and there's just been too much disappointment in my life. because as soon as he coughs up the puck, that directly results in a goal. I'm
Right.
thinking, there it is. They've
Yeah.
been waiting 9 games for this fucking play so
Yeah.
they can make the excuse to send him back. Like, there it
Yeah.
is. I think I even text you, was like, is
You
that
did.
the play?
Yep.
That's the
Yep.
play right
That's the
there.
play that sends
That's
them
it.
back.
We're done. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. So when they kept him after that play, I'm like, great. I mean, I really thought that, because there was no explanation for me. Why are we waiting this out? Like,
Yeah.
he's literally one of the better players you have. And again, like we said last week, who is going to play for him in that spot? Like, they
Right.
just don't have center depth. Like, they
No.
just don't. So,
No, I mean, that
and
was one of the big worries when Bergeron and Krejci were retired, is they didn't have any center depth. And this
no,
kid comes in and gives you a
this is a
gift,
blessing.
playing,
Yeah.
playing so well. And then you're going to yank him around a little bit. Like, oh, he's not going to stay. He's not going to stay. I don't, there would have been a riot on the streets of
Oh,
Boston
sure. Oh,
if
sure.
they had sent him back to Guelph, like a riot.
Yeah.
The
Yes.
people in the North End would have been throwing cannolis at each other. And
Oh,
I mean, it would have been a
area.
cats and dogs living together. It would have been a riot.
Yes. Oh,
The
Sweeney
fan
would have
base
gotten blasted.
lost
Just,
their
yeah.
collective fucking minds.
It would have been back to they don't treat rookies well. They don't treat prospects well. They don't believe in prospects. The whole narrative comes back if they don't keep the guy here. And, it was the right thing to do. And I don't know how long he'll be here. And I think if he goes 40 games, then they burn that, then they burn 1 year of that 7-year RFA status.
Oh,
So I think if he goes 40 games, if he plays 40 games. So they were talking about the World Juniors, and that's an interesting thought, is that, maybe he goes and plays the World Juniors, and it takes, eats some of the games if he's getting close. So who knows?
That's interesting.
But, that could happen. All right, Chirp 5. Matt Grzelcyk hurt, upper body injury. Montgomery said a few weeks, or at least after the game he did. He was put on long-term IR on November 1st. Seems like more than 2 weeks. What do we do on defense? Recalled Lohrei, Mitchell, Wotherspoon, Zaboral not recalled, as we talked about. He's got to be buried in the depth chart. And what would you do?
I mean, I would go with Lohrei for sure. I wasn't particularly sold on Mitchell. I would have brought up Zaboral. I mean, if it was me, but because I think he's more of an NHL caliber defenseman than Mitchell or Wotherspoon, even though both of those guys have played some games in the league. I thought Mitchell's was not very good in his initial time up here. And Wotherspoon hasn't played at the NHL level with the Bruins, so we'll see how he does, I guess. But to me, he's more of a forward type than a puck mover. And I don't know if you need more guys like that against some of the speed and skill that you're going to be facing. So to me, it should have been Zaboral along with Lohrei, and those are the guys that you plug in. But we'll see what happens. I guess maybe because of the McAvoy suspension, you need a right D. And maybe that's where Wotherspoon kind of fits in. But they're thin there. Like originally it was like, oh, right D, we got plenty. Now it's left D where you got a lot. And right D, behind McAvoy and Carlo, you don't have much of anything. You have Shattenkirk, who had been playing pretty well. He's going to get a huge bump in minutes. But he's a veteran guy. In the minors, there's not a lot there.
No.
So that's probably the Wotherspoon call up, but it's just it's a little concerning, really. If they get a couple injuries or something like that on the right side, you're gonna have a guy playing his offside for some time. I don't know. That doesn't sound great to me. So I would think at the deadline they're going to be looking for a right shot D man, but who knows?
For right now, the pairings on Thursday night look like Lindholm and Shattenkirk, Lohrei and Carlo, and then Wotherspoon and Mitchell, because Derek Forbort is questionable for the game. So there you go. So that even further kicks the world down the street.
Oh my God!
Is that Forbort's not going to be there? So you're going to have Shattenkirk playing top pair minutes. I think you're going to see Lohrei and Carlo play an awful lot. in the game, and that's probably good for Lohrei. We'll get a good taste of what he can do, especially against the Toronto friggin' Maple Leafs.
Yeah.
That's a tough test
Yeah.
to play
Welcome in.
23 minutes or whatever.
Yeah. He's going to, they'd probably play half the game. I bet.
Oh, no doubt.
I bet he and Carlo approach 30 minutes. I bet
Right.
you they're in the high 20s, like 27, 28 minutes. I bet.
Yeah. Could very well happen.
Oh, man.
Chirp 6, the penalty kill is dominant. 36 out of 37. One power play goal against. This is probably why Joe Sacco remains on the bench.
It probably is. I mean, if you're in charge of that and it's clicking along at that kind of a clip, he's obviously doing something right as far as that goes. It's been really good. Whoever they kind of plug in there. Obviously, the goaltending plays a huge part of it. The goaltending's been excellent all year long, and that plays a huge part. But a lot of the penalty killers and some new guys in there now too are really doing a great job. Beecher's in there. JD is killing some penalties a little bit. Coyle obviously has been really strong, and then your forwards and your Carlos and McAvoy before the suspension. Those guys, Shattenkirk even have really been doing a great job all year long. So definitely a strength of theirs. Should be a strength too all year.
Yeah, Charlie McAvoy talked to Savia Jurkovic during one of the intermissions, and mentioned Joe Sacco by name when he talked about the penalty kill and and how well they do there and how well it's coached, and it is. I mean, their stick positioning is fantastic. I mean, they block tons of shots on the power play. You can't get much through, and then of course the goaltending's great. So at the end of the day, on the major, Allmark had 7 saves. So he's your best penalty killer. That's even when he's a stone wall or Swayman's a stone wall, it makes it even harder. So, I mean, that's a great quality to have. Hopefully it continues. We saw them have a good PK for much of the year last year, and then the playoffs, it kind of let them down a little.
It did.
So, we'll see what happens. But now without forward, I mean, the penalty kill is definitely going to be tested with these new 3 defensemen. Who aren't really great defensive defensemen.
Right.
So that's another, Carlo could be playing. If they're in the box a lot, Carlo's going to be playing 40 minutes. That's going to be a tough one. All right. In Chirp 7, the only team to score at least 3 goals in every game this season, the New Jersey Devils, the Vegas Golden Knights, and your Boston Bruins.
Can you imagine that?
Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah, if you had thought that early in the season, you would have said not the Bruins. They'll win some games 2-1, squeak some out. But yeah, 3 goals in every game. That's winning hockey. If you're scoring 3 and giving up under 2, that's winning hockey, ladies and gentlemen.
I think Derek Sanderson says that that's the key to victory.
It is.
Goals in the other team.
Scoring more goals than the other team is a way you can win most games.
Yeah, most of them.
Most of the time, if you score more goals than the other team, you'll win. Most of the time. 100%.
So they have the best penalty kill. They are 6th and 5-on-5 goals average. And now they have the 3 goals or more, only 3 teams, and they're one of them. So that's probably why they're 8-0-1, right?
Yeah, it's a recipe for winning. And the power play, it seems like lately has kind of found itself a little bit. It's kind of making some strides there too. So that's good to see. Putting it all together would be really good for them moving forward.
Sure. DraftKings Sportsbook is Boston's hometown sportsbook. It's live right here in Massachusetts and now in Maine. And that's fantastic for us.
Oh, that's good news for you.
Bet local and all your favorite sports from the comfort of your own home with DraftKings. To celebrate, all new customers will receive up to $200 in bonus bets when you sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook using code ITR. You can now bet local on moneyline spreads, props, and more with one of America's top-rated sportsbooks, DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, sign up with the code ITR to get up to $200 in bonus bets to use. Now that mobile sports betting is live in Massachusetts and then in Maine on November the 3rd, that's code ITR only at DraftKings Sportsbook.
If you or a loved one is experiencing problems with gambling, call 800-327-5050 or visit helplinema.org to speak with a trained specialist free and confidentially 24/7. 21 plus. physically present in Mass. Eligibility restrictions apply, subject to regulatory licensing requirements. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. Opt-in required. Bonus issued as free bets. Terms at DraftKings.com/MA.
And beauties for this week, and beauty number 3 is the aforementioned Charlie McAvoy.
Gonna love you, eh? They're gonna be loving you from dawn until dusk.
McAvoy points in 4 of his last 5, goals in 2 straight, playing 24 minutes a night, and 1 boneheaded penalty. But he is a beauty. He's one of the rare both coming up.
Yeah.
Foreshadowing.
He's rolling double duty tonight.
right. All right. Beauty number 2 is Pavel Zacha.
Gonna love you, eh? They're gonna be loving you from dawn until dusk.
Game-winning overtime goal against Florida. He scored 3 goals in his last 4. He has 3 goals, 3 assists, 6 points in the 9 games. He's a +5 in doing what we hoped he would do as essentially the number 1 center.
Yeah, he's playing well. He's come on, especially of late. He started off a little bit slow, like a lot of the guys did. But he's coming around, and they're going to need him to produce and hopefully exceed what he did last year, in a wing role, whereas now the 200-foot game and so forth. So doing it defensively and offensively, and he has been so far. So that's good to see.
Yeah, and beauty number 1, the goalies.
Gonna love you, eh? They're gonna be loving you from dawn until dusk.
Jim Montgomery says that they are the reason that we are 8-0-1, and it's hard to argue that.
It certainly is. They've been fantastic. I mean, you can't really think of a single goal really that you're like, he really should have had that one. Maybe one here or there. I can't think of any off the top of my head. Where it was like, geez, the goaltending really let them down there. I mean, they're the reason that the team is where they are at, no doubt.
Absolutely.
And now we'll go to Bender. It is the singular Charles McAvoy.
Bender.
It's just a dumb play. Just a dumb play. And he got 4 games for it, and he was playing probably the best hockey of the year and possibly of his career. He has been shooting more. He's been doing kind of all the things that they wanted him to do, and the points had started to come in the last 4 or 5 games. And then he just goes and does something just completely boneheaded, and it cost him and it cost the team. So hopefully, they can withstand his absence. But it's going to be tough against the caliber of competition that they're playing now here in the next 4 games.
I think his advanced play, his better play, is a direct correlation to the comments Cam Neely made about how he was reminded of Raymond Bourque by Charlie McAvoy and the kind of style of player he was. And I think that was kind of telling Charlie, like, we expect more from you offensively, because Raymond Bourque had like the most shots in the history of the league, didn't he? So,
he would get, like, routinely like 300 shots a year.
Routinely. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's, he's not going to be Raymond Bourque probably, and not, he's not Raymond Bourque now, but I think it's basically telling him, like, look, we look to you as that type of defenseman. And we've talked about how if he's going to win a Norris, he's got to come with 60, 70 points. Like, he's got to be there, because it's a points award as much as it is a defenseman award.
Yeah, it's a point more than anything now. Yeah, it really is.
More than anything. Has to.
Yeah,
he has to. And
he had his highest point total of his career last year, whatever, in the 50 or in the 50s. So he's getting there. And hopefully he can take another step forward this year.
Sure. Centennial Spotlight. And this is where we chronicle the historic 100 Bruins. And how about PJ Axelson? Per Johan had 797 games, all with the Boston Bruins, 103 goals, 184 assists, 287 points. Hey, how about this? 5 Selke top 20 finishes, which I didn't realize. 54 playoff games. Not excelling in the postseason. 4, 3, and 7, -16. But hey, PJ is now, I believe, a scout in Finland. Scout Well, he's European.
Yeah, he's the Scandinavian
Yes.
area
There you go.
scout for the Bruins. Yes.
Right. And
And he
PJ
was,
was an excellent defensive player.
yeah, an
in his-
excellent defensive forward. He was actually one of the guys who really put in good word for Fabian Lysell
Yes.
to be drafted. So
Yeah. And
you know,
also Dan's Luck Mellis, I believe.
yes.
Yeah. So some of those, later round European guys.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
PJ
that's
gets some
PJ.
credit.
So hopefully,
Yeah.
some of those guys can pan out, and PJ can take some of the credit for that, which he would definitely deserve. But yeah, he was always a pretty good Bruin. You never thought he was going to score a goal, a goal.
Right. Right.
He
Right.
definitely was more of kind of a defensive guy. I think if you compared him to somebody on last year's team, it wouldn't be necessarily the size wise, but kind of along the same lines as a Thomas Nosek type of a guy.
Right.
Who, very responsible defensively, will chip in with the occasional offense and
Right.
not hurt you too much while he's out there.
Sure, like a Danton Heinen. Yeah,
Sure.
that's the same kind of guy. And PJ, played almost 800 games, all with the Bruins. Hey, we're going to be focusing on a little bit of Providence Bruins this year. Providence Bruins beauty of the week. And the beauty this week is Mason Lohrei. Defenseman had assists in 3 straight games and gets the call up, and will be taking on some top 4 minutes in Thursday's game against Toronto.
Yeah, it sounded like he started very slowly down there, and he really came on last, handful of games there with assists and playing better. So hopefully that can translate when he gets now that he gets the call up to the Bruins, and he'll have a real tough test in front of him with Toronto on Thursday night.
Sure. We're looking forward to seeing Mason Lohrei play some heavy minutes against a really good team.
Yes.
And look, if it's not great, then obviously it won't make or break his entire career, but it will be interesting to see how he does. And if he does perform well, then, Mason could be around for a while, and then, the Bruins could have some decisions to make when it comes to the roster when Grzelcyk does return. And they may take a little bit more time with him too, which is the luxury they would have.
Sure.
With someone like Grzelcyk too. And again, Grzelcyk against a heavier kind of physical team, intense kind of game, gets hurt again, and it kind of adds to the narrative that's half narrative, half reality, that he has a hard time with the physicality, and has some injury concerns there, and his stature is something that Bruins fans have been concerned about. And again, Grizz gets hurt again. He's had shoulder issues. It's upper body. So, hopefully he's okay. And how about the prospect spotlight in this week? Boy, Oscar Grzelcyk with the Boston College Eagles, the number 1 team in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And Oscar has 5 goals and 2 assists for 7 points in 6 games with them. And they are a wagon of a team. They have an all freshman line that's all top 12 picks or whatever they are.
Yeah.
And then Grzelcyk has been probably their best player so far. But Cutter Gauthier is on the team as well. And Andre Gassot is on the team, also a Bruins prospect. And Grzelcyk has been outstanding for the Eagles.
He has been. And he had a shorty the other day. I mean, he's really, really playing well for them. And that is a wagon of a team. A lot of NHL talent on that team. A lot of NHL talent throughout Hockey East, honestly. A bunch of teams there that are really good, and a bunch of Bruins guys that are in Hockey East. So if you're interested in checking out some Bruins prospects, definitely get to a Hockey East game and check some of these guys out. But Grzelcyk has been firing away, playing really well, and one of the better prospects for the Bruins right now, as far as his start to the season goes.
Sure. 20-year-old sophomore, 5'11", 181. He plays left wing and center. He was a 5th round pick in 2021, 149th overall. And like you said, he's playing with that great team with Will Smith and Cutter Gauthier is on the team, and Gabe Perreault. And, they just have some really great players. The number 1 in the country, outstanding team. And Grzelcyk has made some great strides offensively which is a great sign, and maybe another later round pick that's going to be performing well. And also, with all of these guys called up, Frederick Brunet is going to get a ton of time with Providence. And that's a guy on defense who was also a 5th round pick and has really climbed the charts. He's off to a rather slow start, but now he's going to be thrust into a bigger role there. It'll be interesting to see how he does with Providence.
Yeah, it'll be nice to see him get some time. I think because of the depth that Providence has, I think they have 9 defensemen on the roster. They've been shuttling guys kind of back and forth between Providence and Maine, and then you have a couple guys in Providence that aren't getting much time. Brunet was one of them, and now with the call ups, he's going to see a lot more time and get some power play time too, which is one of his strengths. So it'll be interesting to see how he can perform now with a little bit of an expanded role there.
Right, and Ryan Mast was brought up from Maine to Providence as well to fill a spot there too on the blue line. Week ahead for the Bruins, November 2nd versus Toronto, November 4th at Detroit, November 6th at Dallas. This is a tough 3-game stretch, Leafs, and then a rematch with Detroit, and then a good Dallas Stars team on the road. So this is going to be a tough one right here with a thin defense.
It is. It's going to be very tough with a thin defense. I mean, you're missing arguably, one of your top player on defense, definitely, and arguably one of your, top 3 players on the team. So, it's going to be a test for sure for them to get through this stretch unscathed.
Sure, absolutely. Go to InsideTheRink.com for Bruins Benders merchandise. We have shirts and hoodies and hats and mugs. And now that Matt Patra is on the Bruins for quite a while, get a Potsy 51 shirt, would you? It's right on the site there. Follow us on social media at Bruins Benders. We do game updates on Twitter. Hey, and join us on November 18th at Lops Brewing in Woonsocket, Rhode Island. If you're in the area, come by. It's a watch party. We're going to do the pod. We're going to drink some new beer called Bar Down IPA, New England IPA, and join us for a little meet and greet on November the 18th at Lops Brewing. And thanks a lot again for listening. We'll be back again next week with another episode. Until then, go Bruins.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.